For Project 2, the intention was to design a web application that was both mobile-friendly and able to improve the user experience for visitors of Letchworth State Park. Letchworth State Park is located in New York and is known as the Grand Canyon of the East, and is popular for its family-friendly trails and the corresponding views of the 3 different waterfalls that run between the gorge. For this assignment, I wanted to work from the perspective of a potential visitor to give them an idea of what to expect when attending the park and how to best plan out activities such as hiking, camping, and general sightseeing. I also wanted to create something that would be beneficial to park admin or a ranger, as one of the primary issues I noticed going to the state website was the amount of static information relating to closures and trail conditions throughout the park. For my web application, for somebody visiting the park, there's generally 3 different functions for them, and 1 for the park ranger here at the bottom, which is this edit icon. For the first one, my thought was that people that are looking for a potential trail to identify in the park, they can use this trail finder querying tool that I've created. So if I want to go ahead and say I only want to look at trails that are labeled with an easy difficulty in the database and are maybe less than a maximum of 5 miles in length, and I can also bike and do horseback riding on it and hit submit, you can see that the server fetches those trails and returns them back in this highlighted style here. If I go ahead and zoom in a little bit, you can see that the trail label gets rendered. That's just something that's on my GEOG server. That basically just says to display the trail name at a certain zoom level so as not to clutter up the map. So you can see right there, Big Bend Road is located right there. If I wanted to do a second query, I can go ahead and hit this clear filters button. And if, let's just say I'm going with like a family and I want to set it to easy and all hiking less than 1 that I could also ride bikes on, again, you can see these results get returned. And it's very easy for somebody who's not familiar with the park to use this tool to identify certain areas where they might want to park and potentially explore one of the trails. This next function here is not related really to the map at all, but this is just the lodging options that are available throughout the park. You can see that they have cabins which correspond to each of these 5 different lettered campgrounds here. So this is just a general idea. So here's a picture of the cabin, and then this booking icon here will take you to the external website for the New York State Parks that lets you go through the booking process for those specific cabins. Same idea with the Glen Iris Inn and Pinewood Lodge. There's some images and descriptions, and you can go to the external website and book from there. Another thing that I thought the user would be interested in is having the ability to search on features throughout the park. Now, if they're not quite familiar with the park itself, I wanted to prevent the issue of somebody trying to look for a nature center they might not know the name of, or a trail they might know the name of, not know the name of. So I went ahead and set up these icons here. So basically what happens is if you click on this trail icon, this drop down will populate with all the different trails throughout the park. And if you select one that's of interest to you, it will zoom into that specific trail and give you some context of where it is within the park itself. Same idea with the campgrounds. If I'm looking for, campground E, I can click right here and it'll take me right there. You can see the actual cabin icons and their location here relative to facilities and bathrooms. And if you zoom out, you can see this is another dynamic styling that I have set up where this icon here just denotes the campground location and the letter showing the actual name of the amenity itself. For this info tab here, this just gives the user a little bit more context and control over what they actually see on the state park map. So you can see there's a legend right here corresponding to all the different amenities that I've made available to the user, along with these different status icons denoting whether a campground is open or closed, or there's some type of note from the park ranger that somebody might need to be aware of. Same idea with the park entrance. There are certain times throughout the year where these entrances get closed off due to icy road conditions or warnings are issued because of animals spotted, things along those lines. That's kind of the intent that I had behind these. This right here is just a standard drop-down layer, and what you can do as a user is you can toggle things on and off. So if I want to turn off tourist attractions, for example, I can do that. If I want to remove parking, same kind of idea. It just gives the user a little bit of control over kind of what they want to look at when they're planning their trip to the park. Same idea with these base maps. You can switch to satellite imagery, just a different style of base map. And generally, I think this gives a user decent control over how they actually want the map to look, or the kind of the feel that they want to have when observing features throughout the park. This last option here is intended for a park admin or a ranger. This is an editor mode. Ideally, I'd like to have some type of a login screen here before this opens up, but due to some time constraints, I wasn't able to do that. But the general idea here is that park rangers are able to go in and make modifications to trails, entrances, or campgrounds throughout the park. So if I go ahead and click on this trail icon here, it fires basically a listener where wherever I click on a trail throughout the park, it'll highlight and populate in the side panel with that corresponding trail, and I'm able to make edits to it. So let's say that I'm looking at Hemlock Trail and I want to make a change to it and say that it's maybe potentially closed due to maybe muddy conditions or things along those lines. If I do this, this sends a transaction to my Geo server where all these layers are on and alters that feature in the database to now correspond to that closed symbology. So if I go ahead and just scroll right here, you can see it refreshes and now it's colored red for signaling it being closed like it is in the legend right here. Same idea if I wanted to change a condition for an entrance. So I went ahead and just clicked on the icon for entrances, and let's just say Portageville I want to open up. And you can see it gets populated here. I can go ahead and change that to open and say that, conditions are clear. I go ahead and hit submit here. Sends us another transaction that request, changes the feature in the database, and you can see it's now rendered in green on the map right here. If I want to make a change to the campgrounds, exact same kind of idea. It opens up that listener for that campground feature layer. And if I click here, this pop-up will now populate and show the name of the campground and the most recent note for it, which was that the campground was closed in that capacity. So if I want to go ahead and go in here and say the campground's now open and denote that there are maybe 10 spots available, I can do that. Hit submit, same idea, sends that request and alters that data in the database where you're now looking at it symbolized as being open. And if I go ahead and click on it here, you can now see that the notes changed and the symbology is different as well. So really the 4 different features that I wanted to highlight through this map were 3 for a user and 1 for a park admin, basically in terms of using that same view to be able to better facilitate and convey up-to-the-date, timely information to a user that's going to plan a trip to the park. If I want to go ahead here and just show kind of like the mobile functionality, I'm using the DevTools right here, and I'm just going to toggle it down to the mobile view. You can see that the majority of these pullouts for this sidebar fit pretty well within the map. I can still use this. If I want to say I want to look for easy trails and hit submit, you can see right there, all these trails get populated. Same kind of idea when you're looking at the lodging. Everything's kind of lined up pretty well. So this sidebar ended up being pretty beneficial for kind of making that mobile experience desirable for this map.